So we have a confirmation with a second opinion that he definitely has prostate cancer.
I'm Reggie Hicks, producer of the documentary and outreach project, If You Are My Brothers. And I'm also host of this podcast, the If You Are My Brothers podcast. And welcome to this episode. In 2003, President George Bush issued a proclamation formally naming the month of September National Prostate Cancer Awareness Month, emphasizing the importance of screening, early detection, and also understanding the risk factors. So, we want to welcome you to our first in a series of episodes this month as we recognize Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. And today we kick off our series with a very special program, which we've aptly titled Every Stage, Every Challenge, Every Triumph Men Talking Prostate Cancer. And that's what we got. During this episode, we have a panel of men who will share their prostate cancer journeys from active surveillance to radiation therapy and prostate removal. So settle in for some real talk and clear insight on this episode. As always, before we get started, a little housekeeping. Remember, we are not a substitute for your medical team, and opinions expressed and medical issues discussed on this podcast are not meant as a substitute for any medical treatment. Now, for that, you want to make sure to consult your healthcare provider. And of course, with most disclaimers of fine print, there's always one more thing. Some of what we discuss on this episode may be of a mature nature, so we want to make sure you listen accordingly. So, we're here for your questions, so don't be shy because this is real life we're talking about. And remember to please like, share, and subscribe, and join us in the chat as we take this journey together. So, you might be wondering why I'm doing this podcast. And my story is pretty long, and I've talked about it on previous episodes. So, you can learn more about how this project came to be and my story. We'll talk a little bit about it in this episode, but you can do that by going to our website, which is ifyouaremybrothers.org. That's www for old folk, ifyouaremybrothers.org, and you can find out all about the project and how it all came to be. So we want to thank you again for joining us. If you're here live, remember it's interactive. This is a conversation. So we hope you join us. And also, if you're watching on this program being archived, you can also go to our website. You can follow us on social media and connect with us that way. And of course, the same if you're listening on the podcast version of this, which comes out on Tuesday. So, without any further ado, we want to go ahead and introduce our panel for tonight or today. And since this is football season, I kind of wanted to bring out our guests one at a time. So starting at wide receiver, just kidding, just kidding. First up is Eric Cheney. Just to let you know, Eric, of course, was on our first program. We had a little weather incident there where he, got frozen, but through a thunderstorm, but we made it through. Eric and I went to school together at the University of Georgia. That's why we were all repping our schools this evening. And Eric right now is going through what's called active surveillance. I remember when I was going through, it's called watch and waiting, or watchful waiting rather. So we're going to talk to Eric about where he is and his journey. And Eric, if you want to, Dan, if you can bring Eric in, there he is. Dr. Cheney, how you doing?
Reggie, how we doing today?
I am so glad that you are back with us.
Yes. Go dogs. See, get
Absolutely.
it on. Go dogs.
Now, coming up, we got our running back, and that's Mr. Milton Little. And Milton, I just want to say that, all of us, we're all family men, children, some grandchildren. Um, Milton is in the community here as the head of the United Way and doing a lot of work in the community. But I will say this, that he has really helped me. And when I've gone through and having a reoccurrence of prostate cancer, and he's given me some really good advice. And Milton, if you will come on in, I just want to thank you for your help and your wisdom and your guidance. And as I continue my journey, how are you this evening?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to see you. Good to be with you.
Good, good. I'm glad you can make it. No, everybody's so busy.
Yeah.
Now coming up, I'm gonna concentrate on the offense, and we need a kicker. So I'm gonna have John McEady, if he's ready, to come in. John and I are church members. We kind of had our journey start at the same time. John is an advocate. He's around in the community speaking about prostate cancer and kind of what he went through, and he opted to have what's called prostacision. And John can talk a little bit about that as we go through the program. But it's radiation seeds and then also radiation around the prostate. John, we got you squared away.
I think so. Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
Falcons right here, buddy. ATL all the way.
All right, all right. I'm glad that we're able to work that out.
Yes,
Let's
yes,
see.
yes.
And now I want to bring the final member of our panel on to the field, if you will. And since we have offense, I'm gonna go with some defense. Our defensive back tonight, all the way from Morehouse College, as is Milton as well, is James Washburn. James and I talked a little bit today. He had gone through prostate cancer and opted to have it removed robotically. And James is originally from Atlanta. And you all had a real, you and Eric had a real fiery discussion, not fiery, but intense about the Atlanta school system, which we could do off camera at some point. But James, I want to thank you for coming in. He and I both, we have a mutual friend, Jeff Fortson, who said James is going to be great. He'd be a great person to bring on. So, James, come on as our only defensive player. So you got a lot of work to do. How you doing today?
No problem. I've got you. I'm great, and I've got you covered.
All right. So I want to get started because, we have a number of folk here, and I don't want to not waste time, but I want to get right into the crux of why we're here, which is really talking about our journey. And I was in an interview earlier this week, and I was asked by the person about any symptoms that I had. And I thought about that. I said, well, I didn't really have any symptoms. That most people I talk to don't have symptoms. I gave them, I gave her some symptoms that can happen. But I said, in most cases, there really aren't any. And so I want to talk about symptoms from you guys. And Milton, I'll start with you as far as kind of knowing, was there anything that said what's going on here?
There was not one symptom that I could recall. You look back and you think, well, maybe I got up one extra time at night to go to the bathroom or something. But beyond that, you don't feel anything or nothing showed up in the tests or anything. I thought I was home free and, healthy as could be.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, James?
I'm going to share definitely with Milton. I didn't feel like I had any symptoms either. The only thing about the extra bathroom trip, if you didn't drink something late at night, then that didn't happen either. And that's really what I would have correlated that one symptom to. If I happened to have a late meal at night or just something that I happened to drink late at night, then that was association with that, not thinking about prostate cancer at all.
Yeah. So everything was pretty normal
Yes.
for the most part. Yeah. And as you get older, you do go to the bathroom late at night. I get to tell you that. Eric, what about you? Anything that might have, alerted you that something was happening? I don't know. Eric may not be able to hear us. So we'll go to John.
Okay. I can hear.
Yeah, we got feedback on Eric.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, there you go. So can you hear us, Eric? Or maybe not. Eric's always the one that's giving us issues. Danny can attest to that. John, what about you? Did you find any
No,
is
as I think
anything?
about it, no, because when I have my talk with people in the community, I tell them that's the thing. It was zero symptoms, so that's the scary part about it. But I was made aware that once I turned 40 as a black male, that I need to be conscious about the PSA. Didn't know anything about PSA, but was told that by a prostate cancer survivor. So that's what made me aware to look out for, to get my yearly test for PSA. So, but no, I didn't have any symptoms prior to that. No.
And let's talk about that, because John, you said you didn't know about the PSA.
Right.
You kind of just mentioned that something that you needed to look out for.
Right.
Right.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it. Man, we seldom want to go get physical. So, PSA specifically, no, I didn't know anything about it until the gentleman told me. And, he explained it to me, you know, black males, we're the highest risk group to get prostate cancer. That caught my attention. It's like, what? And so, yeah, from 40 on, yearly, I would, ask the doctor about my PSA. So, yeah, that was, that was a big deal to me because when I was diagnosed, the doctor told me that I had an aggressive form of prostate cancer. He said, you know, uh, you need to let me know within a month what your decision is going to be. So, during that time frame, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. James, what about you? Did you know about a PSA? Know what it was, or any? And I'm also going to ask you all about the DRE, which is the digital rectal exam, which my doctor always left in my physical for the last thing he did, so I couldn't sneak out of the room. But James, anything that you knew going into this about your PSA?
I was completely aware of what the PSA was, but it was the farthest thing from my mind in terms of me being in the situation. I was an athlete. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke. So I figured, short of, not maybe doing the physical every year, I was on a every other year kind of scenario, that I was good. So it was the farthest thing from my mind.
Milton, what about you?
Well, I knew about it. I had a work colleague, a black man, who had been diagnosed. And so I learned a lot from his experience. My father's brother, my uncle, passed away from prostate cancer. And so I was hyper vigilant, knew about the PSA, and from age 40 on, was regularly tested, and we'll talk about it, but certainly all too familiar with the famous digital rectal exam.
But Milton, you bring up something that I know I had no clue as to if there was anything in my family. Once I was diagnosed, and then my brother was diagnosed about a year or so later. So Eric, I think we're hearing you in the background, Eric. So we need to mute Eric, Danny. I think we're hearing him in the background. So I didn't know. I mean, and my brother didn't know, and we ended up both having prostate cancer. John or James, any history, or were there any discussions at all about what was going on down there?
Well, for me, I learned after the fact that my grandfather was detected with prostate cancer, but he was well into his 90s. So, but that was after the fact. But no previous discussion whatsoever. That's one of the things we have to correct, that we don't talk about it enough. It's not just prostate cancer that seemingly African Americans are the most affected with. It seems like it's everything, whether it's breast cancer, COVID, you name it. We seemingly get the raw end of the stick every single time.
Yeah. And John, did you
Well,
know your family history?
I learned that my uncle had prostate cancer, but they attributed that to him being in the war, Agent Orange. So, but that was the extent of the discussion. He didn't tell me that I need to get a check or whatever. And subsequently, I have two cousins that were diagnosed as well. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So it's kind of after well, I know a lot of it's kind of after the fact, right?
Yeah.
I think this generation, we kind of talk about it more. I know that previous generations, they really didn't discuss it a lot or at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to know, and this is something that I guess we all can remember. What was it like when the doctor told you for the first time you heard that the C word? And also tell me if you can remember what your PSA was and how old were you when you first heard that you had prostate cancer? James.
Certainly, I'll jump right in. Actually, I'll give you a little background on what got me to the office to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
We would happen to be in the grocery store of all places. I was with my wife, and they had one of the little blood testing machines right outside of the pharmacy. She says, "Hey, you should get your blood pressure checked. I think it's high." And so, as it turns out, the machine did give me a high reading. And she says, "Okay, well, I'm going to schedule you to go to the doctor." But as it turns out, that was a false reading. My blood pressure was fine, but my PSA level was not. It actually turned out to be that my level was an 11.6, and it was rated as high. And initially, the test results, when they came back, they were trying to give me a call, and they ended up sending me a letter, and then just kept calling. I was like, "Well, what's going on?" And so finally, he said, "Hey, you need to go in and see a urologist right away." And so, as it turns out, I went through. I was given a referral by my primary care physician to see a urologist, and said, "Hey, you need to do a biopsy to let's make sure everything's okay." And as it turns out, after the biopsy, 3 of my 12 samples were positive. And he said, "Hey, it's a really slow growth form of prostate cancer, but you do have it."
So was it
And
was
so
it in the? No, go ahead.
my initial reaction was disbelief, but once again, I knew someone who had gone through this process, so it wasn't that I jumped out of the chair. I was upset. I took it calmly, and we discussed the next steps.
So James, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
My initial test results of the PSA level, I was 43 years old. When I officially tested positive for cancer, I was 44.
Oh, you were young compared. Yeah. What about you, Milton? You remember?
Yeah, well, my PSA had slowly been increasing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we were paying attention to. It had been, less than 2, and suddenly it had gotten to a 4. And so we started paying serious attention to it. I think finally it got up to maybe 5.8. I remember my Gleason score was a 7, a 3, and a 4. So that was a little to the doctor. What was my first reaction when I heard the C word? Having come from a family that's experienced cancer and having lost a wife to breast cancer, the other C came into mind: chemo. Is that going to be part of my treatment? And I've seen what chemo does to folks. So I went to okay, what's my treatment plan going to be? And Lord knows I don't want to have to go through chemo. And so that was my initial reaction. And then I sobered up as the doctor began to tell me what my options were, how treatable it was. And I got my feet back on the ground and started facing forward to what's the plan and how will you execute.
John, what about you? What was that like when you got the results back? And
Well, me as well. I wasn't shocked, because there's a lot of cancer on my dad's side of the family. Different cancer, colon cancer, prostate cancer, and then I was 49 when I was diagnosed, and I was actually the same age as my father when he died of lung cancer. Well, he was diagnosed at 49. He died at 50. And so, I mean, it was weird, strange to hear, you were diagnosed with cancer. And initially, I thought I was dealing with the manly thing. But as soon as I got back to my office, it's like I'm going back to work. I just have to deal with it later. But someone said something at the office, and I just started bawling like a big baby. It's like, man, we don't cry, right? We don't do that, right? So, and when I had to talk to my wife about it, so that was another crying period. So it's like, wait a minute, I'm a big baby here. And so after I got all the tears out, I started doing my research because here in Metro Atlanta, this is Black Mecca, right? So even though men don't like to talk about prostate cancer, I was able to, talk to different men at different churches. And so their treatment options, the effects of them, and I did my own research. And then I came to narrowed it down to 3 treatment options. Then my family and I, we prayed about it. And then I chose the prostacision because, that facility here is like they cater to prostate cancer patients. And they had a big database of 30,000 men that they had treated for prostate cancer. So I went with that option because there was no cutting involved,
Mm-hmm. So that's a good segue. But I'm gonna I think Eric is back.
Mm-hmm.
Eric, can you hear us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. You're always
Very
the
good.
person that aren't you the IT person? I'm gonna mess with
Okay.
you. So yeah.
I'm gonna take that because we went to school together.
Right.
Don't forget now, I missed you.
I know. What about you? What about you, Eric? So now you're in what they call the watchful waiting, active surveillance, right? And I think didn't you have a doctor's appointment? You told me yesterday.
I had a doctor appointment that was yesterday. It's been rescheduled for Tuesday.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm in the active surveillance stage where I had been going for my regular checkups because I'm one that I believe in 2 things. You tell your doctor everything, you tell your attorney everything. And I've gone through a normal checkup, and it kind of noticed that my PSA numbers had started going up. So at that particular point, I'm with Kaiser Permanente. They were saying, well, it's time looking at your age and looking at all the other factors. And I have the predisposition of cancer because both my mother and father died of cancer at early ages in their adult life. And I'm just somewhat sensitive to that. So we went in and they went in and looked at it, and we actually did our first MRI. And when the MRI came back, that they had found some small amounts. So it was low grade. So that's when they decided they were going to put me on the active surveillance protocol. Went through having a biopsy, and that basically confirmed that it was cancer, and where it was located, it's localized in my prostate.
So do you remember
that time,
I was going to say, do you remember the doctor? Do you remember when it was pronounced, or did you find out in the portal?
It was pronounced to me after I had when I went into the urologist, and that they had actually seen what they seen from the MRI. And that's when they said, okay, well, now what we're going to do is actually get a chance to look at it, to actually calculate whatever the Gleason score is that comes up with it. That's what the actual biopsy came out. And it was saying, okay, it's localized. It's not anything where it's gone anywhere. So what we're going to do is just have a watchful eye on it. Like you had said earlier, watch and wait. So, the protocol I'm on is to do that, go for 6 months, come back, do another PSA, then do a MRI. Now, just recently back in March, I had an MRI, and basically doesn't look like it's too much of a change, but following the protocol, I got to go through and do another biopsy.
They call that MRI now a mammogram instead of a mammogram.
Yes, I heard that.
A mammogram. They didn't have that when I was
without squeezing. None of the squeezing.
Yeah, when I was going through it, it was like, I think I had 3 biopsies. So it was like, okay, one biopsy showed cancer. The second one showed no cancer. And I was trying to qualify for a clinical trial. So because I didn't come up with any cancers, they couldn't use me. And then the third one came up with, there was more issues. So the doctor basically said, you know, you kind of watched and waited, but now you got to make a decision. I will say for me, I do remember because, you know, doing this documentary, I was being filmed, and so, you know, I had no clue. I mean, my PSA was 2.2, and I just really thought that, you know, this will make for good content on the documentary, my going through it. And then when he walked in the door, and that's why it was so vivid to me, when he walked in the door, he had a folder full of information. And in the past, like when my biopsy was normal, he had a piece of paper in his hand. So when he came in with this folder before he got, you know, coming in the door, I had about 15, 20 seconds to sort of get ready for it. My wife was in the room. She didn't know what was coming. A friend of mine who was a videographer he didn't know what was coming, but I knew that it was coming. But when he said it, when he finally said you have prostate cancer, everything else was sort of like, I told somebody that was kind of like, you know, the parents on the Peanuts cartoon when they go wah, 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 wah. I didn't I didn't hear anything else past you have prostate cancer. Oh, sorry about that. I did not know. I was shocked to a degree, and my wife was very emotional about it. But I think what we all do is sort of go through that process and kind of regroup, and then of course the next thing is to talk about treatment. Now you know you have it. What was the process of how you decided on the treatment that you would eventually have? And James, I'm going to ask you about that. Start with you.
The original urologist that I sold, his office staff immediately scheduled me for surgery without my consent. And, you know, it was just kind of like just business as usual for them. They didn't talk to me, didn't take into account. So I said, whoa, I'm not ready for this. We have not talked or discussed this thoroughly at all. So at that point, I knew I needed to get a second opinion and look at some other options beforehand, because the representative from the office obviously rubbed me the wrong way, and that did not go over well because I didn't feel like I had time at all to do any research on my end to see what course of action I wanted to take. And it was just a very bad scenario from that standpoint. You know, I considered proton therapy at the time, which was not available here in the Atlanta area at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So it would have meant that I would have at least spent at least a week in Florida. And there were a lot of other moving pieces that would have had to coordinate together for that to pull off and happen as well, from a family life situation and everything that was going on. But ultimately, I did seek a second opinion, confirmed all the results that had already been transpired, but they did give me another doctor to speak with while I was in the office to give some alternative treatment options as well, which obviously made me feel a lot better. And they said, here, you know, these are your choices. Here's what we recommend, and go forward. So one of the things I will point out, and why I chose what I chose, which was the robotic prostatectomy, was because if I went the other route and the cancer came back, it would not be potentially as successful trying to treat it with the robotic the second go around, and it wouldn't be as effective. So that's the direction I ended up going in. But initially for me, to have the doctor's office just schedule surgery without even talking to me and say, hey, here's your surgery date, just did not leave a good feeling at all.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't give you really time to think about it. It's like, you know, let's go and let's do it. And I had that initially happen. I think once I heard about it, you know, the first thing I wanted to do, even though it was slow growing, it was still in the prostate, the first thing I wanted to do was to get rid of it. And the urologist that I was seeing was like, well, you know, he said, at the end of the day, you can have it removed, or we can do the seed implants. And you know, I kind of knew that's what he was, that was his particular specialty, which was okay. And I kind of rushed to do it, but there was some hiccups in the fact that I didn't have health insurance at the time. And so the whole plan about payment and stuff fell through. And like you know, it's like the surgery was scheduled, but we hadn't worked out the cost and all of that. So I had to I backed off and I said, well, wait a minute. I still have an opportunity to kind of watch and wait. Let me go ahead and look at all of my options, and then let me film that and then make a decision after that. John, you went the radiation route, right?
Plants and radiation, yeah, yeah. Like I'm similar to James in a way that my initial consultation with the urologist didn't go well. You know, to me, he was just,
Mm.
you know, intent on just doing the surgery. You know, that's what they specialize in, surgery. So when I would ask him about, you know, different options, obviously he's like, nah, that's experimental. Nah, don't bother with that. But long story short, I didn't feel comfortable with him, and so I started doing my research and asking different men who had, you know, prostate cancer and their treatment options. And, you know, as I said, I've narrowed it down to 3, and the one that I chose was the seed implants, followed by 6 weeks of radiation. And it had success rate of like 85%, similar to, you know, the traditional typical traditional surgery, removing the prostate, but with less risk, you know, as far as incontinence and impotence, because there was no cutting. We're just inserting the seeds inside the prostate and treating the inside the prostate and around the prostate with the radiation. So yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
And Milton, and you decided to have it removed, correct?
Yeah, I did. You know, I had a great conversation with the urologist who sat me down and explained. But he was in a community-based urology center. Given my wife's cancer journey, I wanted a university-affiliated, research-oriented center that was on the cutting edge of new treatments. And so got connected to the guy who used to run the Prostate Cancer Foundation in LA. He gave me the name of a surgeon here in town. My son, who is a surgeon in LA, put me in touch with one of his colleagues in urology who recommended the same person here in Atlanta. And I sat down with the surgeon and the radiologist, and they told me I was a candidate for both. And ultimately, I chose the prostate removal for the same reasons that James described. And they told me that if the cancer came back and I had radiation the first time, you know, your prostate basically turns to jelly, and they have a lot more difficulty going back in the second time trying to fix whatever needs to be done. So I opted to just get it removed. And if I had to have additional treatments, I wasn't going to worry about them trying to, you know, scrape jelly off out of my body.
Yeah.
And up my chances of a successful second or potentially third go round if I had to go that route.
And Eric, now you haven't gone through anything. What's your process like now? Because you're actually going through it. I mean, you're thinking about, right, what you may have to do down the road. Have you made a decision, or are you still kind
No,
of?
I haven't made a decision. What I'm going to do is after this second biopsy, I'm going to see another urologist that's really outside of Kaiser, because the 2 that I had have gone on to other locations and are no longer affiliated with Kaiser Permanente. So I'm going to the Georgia Urology Center here, which is located down in Fayetteville and Riverdale. And the initial consultation I had with him, as he reviewed my first set of results, he was explaining. He said, "Yeah, you have it." He says, "But here are what your options are." And what my plan is to do is to sit down with him after we do the second biopsy, okay, now, and let's talk about what treatment options there are and what are the pros and the cons. You, as one of my consultees, matter of fact, when I do have this conversation, I'm coming back and you and I'll have a discussion about it. Because guys, don't you know, when I first found out that I had it, he was the first person I called because of the documentary that he had done previously on one of our other fraternity brothers that was presented at one of our conventions. And I figured, you know, I trust, you know, Reggie's judgment. And I was like, when I was ready to, you know, jump off a ledge, when I came out the doctor's office, he was the first one that I called. And I said, hey, man, he told me, he stopped me. He said, don't jump off the ledge. He said, you're going to be fine. It's going to work out. So,
yeah.
that's my plan. That's my plan. I plan to, you know, go through an evaluation of looking at what pros and cons of each one of those and then make a decision.
Mm-hmm.
If it has to come to that. And they may say, they may want me to wait a little bit longer. I don't know. So,
yeah. I think we know that the effectiveness of whatever treatment are all about the same to a degree, and there are pros and cons. And what I'm hearing from all of you is to really take this matter, be an advocate for yourself, to research it, talk to other people, and make the decision. I found that in some cases, you know, urologists, they specialize in different things, right? They do certain things well. And, you know, I had to go with another urologist when I decided to have it removed because I wanted someone who had been doing this, you know, a number of times. And it was, I won't say contentious, but it was kind of like breaking up. You know, it's like, you know, you've been with somebody through this whole process. And after going through, and I looked at proton therapy, I looked at freezing, brachytherapy, I looked at all of the different ones, talked to a number of doctors. I looked at prostacision. John, as a matter of fact, one of the doctors at the organization that does prostacision, actually, we went to high school together, which was interesting. So we had a nice, long conversation, not just about prostacision, but also about, you know, high school in Savannah and what people were doing. So folks were like, well, they've been in there a long time for a consultation. But yeah, I think that what I'm hearing, and I hope that those of you that are watching and listening really sit down and look and research and talk to people. I actually, you know, after going through all of the different, looking at the different treatments, sat down with my wife, and we had all of the brochures and everything at the table. And then that's how I made the decision. And I brought her into the decision because I knew that we would both, you know, be affected by this, which kind of gets to my next question. In that's sort of survivorship. Let's talk about kind of, you will go through treatment, what has happened the first couple of weeks, and kind of where are you now in this whole process? And let's start with John.
Okay. When I had my seed implants and radiation, I did the radiation for a period of 6 weeks. You know, Monday through Friday. I initially, you know, the catheter was inserted just overnight, so that was one thing I was pleased with. So I didn't have to deal with that over an extended period of time. It was just overnight, and they popped it out the next day. And the radiation treatment itself was minimal because I was able to leave work like, you know, 2 o'clock, an hour early, and go to the treatment center. And, you know, the radiation was only about 10 or 15 minutes, you know, in duration by itself. And so that whole process of, you know, the 6 weeks wasn't bad at all. You know, radiation versus, you know, obviously chemo is more harsh and everything. But what I liked about the facility, they made me feel, you know, at home. It was like you know, it wasn't about the money or whatever. They made me feel very much at home and relaxed, because when you're dealing with cancer, you don't need any other stresses. You know, people putting you this direction, that direction. They made me feel like they cared about me. So that's,
Mhm.
you know, And they had a facility actually that for people that were coming from out of state, they had a facility, a lodge that they would put people in, who were going through the treatment. So to me, it was like family. So that's something that sticks out to me about the treatment that I had. It was, it was pleasant,
Yeah. How did Peaches go deal with you going through this? And Peaches, by the way, is John's wife. That we all go to church together, so I know,
Yeah.
I know a little about
Yeah.
this.
And she, obviously she was supportive. As I said, when I narrowed it down to 3 treatment options, we got together as a family, and we prayed about it. And I think about it now because once the decision was made, it was like a burden was lifted because I knew it was the right decision for me. And as the other gentleman was saying, you have to know that the decision is right for you. Prostitution may not be right for you, or prostatectomy may not be right for you, but you need to do your own research. You need to advocate for yourself. Research, research, research. Ask men who had different treatment options because there are other options out there, not just the one that the urologist may suggest. That may be the best one, but it may not be. But you have to advocate for yourself. That's what I found to be really important. Advocate and research for yourself.
Okay. And James, what about you? A couple of weeks after, 1 week after, I think the 3 of us, James, Milton, and I, have been through the removal process. So, what was that? I can tell you what it was like for me, but I'm just curious, James, for you, after the surgery.
Well, before I answer that directly, I just want to kind of paint a little timeline for me because my initial kind of red flag warning was in October of 2016. And my primary care physician brought me back in to do another blood test to confirm the results that were happening. So that was around January. Then I went to the urologist in February and I get my second opinion. So I actually didn't do my surgery until October of 2017. So I had a few months in between because I wasn't in a hurry like the doctor's office was. I wasn't in a hurry to go through that process. I wanted to take the time I needed to. So the one thing that really sticks out to me that my doctor warned me about after the surgery was said to make sure that if you go out for a walk or you go out the house and get some exercise, make sure you take your cell phone with you. Make sure you have some money just in case you need to call a cab because Uber wasn't in existence or Lyft at that point. And I was like, this guy's crazy. What is he talking about? I'm not going to be able to make it back home. And lo and behold, he was exactly right. The toll that it took, it didn't feel like that initially at first, but needing to take a nap in the afternoon was a big thing. Taking that walk and getting back is just for me. Once again, I was an athlete, so I'm accustomed to doing this. I was like, "You're kidding me! You're a joke. This is you. Who are you talking about? This is not me." But lo and behold, everything that he said was correct in terms of just be prepared because you may be able to walk and get to where you're going, but you may not be able to make it back because you're tired. Your body's adjusting to it. And so for me, I've had 2 surgeries in my life. I had my tonsils removed as an adult, and I had this surgery. That's the only time I've been in the hospital. By the way, I don't recommend the tonsils as an adult either.
Right.
It's a totally different experience than as a child. But for me, it was just adjusting to, not having the energy level and the everything that I was accustomed to doing right away. That was a major, major adjustment.
Milton, what about you? Right after the
same experience as a result of the removal. The experience of living with a catheter for 2 weeks was very different from what John described. But at the moment, they tell you how to deal with this thing. And I remember going to a restaurant, strapping that bad boy to my leg and going about my business. I wasn't going to let it get in the way of life. But to James's point, the exhaustion that came and the speed with which it came was something you had to deal with. 2 years later, I ended up having to do proton radiation therapy because my PSA had been increasing as a result of some lingering cells in the prostate bed, and so got that experience as well, which was far less intense, I think, than the removal. But it's a journey, and it's helpful to be in the company of brothers like this and people you can talk to who've been there, who can give you the confidence and the lessons drawn from their experience that tell you you're going to make it past this hurdle, you're going to make it down this turn. Yeah, this is tough, but there's a silver lining at the end of it.
Mm-hmm. And Milton, I just want to say that after 12 years out, I was diagnosed. My PSA was starting to rise. I mean, not like it was before I had the surgery, but it was at like a 0.24, and they say at 0.25,
Right.
it is considered, what they call biochemical recurrence, which, I was like, okay, so that's not too bad, but it's like, it means that the cancer has returned. So I had to
Mhm.
kind of work my way through that, because I was like, okay, so what does that really mean? Until, my oncologist says, well, that means the cancer's come back. I was like, okay, all right. So now I know, where we are with this. And I went through the proton therapy. I mean, we're blessed to have it here at Emory, and James, I went down to Florida, so I know what you're talking about. That's the closest one. I went out to Loma Linda in California, which is, way out there. But I have a sister lives in California, so I was like, well, maybe I could do that. But to have it here, and there were men coming in from all over the southeast, and yeah, then it went to 0.4, and then there's like, okay, there's something going on here in the prostate bed. Um, I will say this about my surgery, though. I will tell you this one story. And when you have you have the catheter in for about a week or so, and 2 weeks, I think you said, Milton. I actually, when we had the catheter removed, you really don't have a lot of control over your bladder, and so when they had it removed, they gave me like this one really thin pad, which was like, okay, and I was like, okay, so I'll be all right. My wife decided to stop by the Goodwill to kind of go through, and I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden it's like you have no control. And one pad, I needed like a big old hefty pad. I had this little one, and all I know is going to the bathroom, and I mean, it was like, you know urine was everywhere. I was like, oh my goodness. So I had to kind of walk through and get back to the car. And I learned that lesson about pads, by the way. I said, I'm not going to ever have a thin pad again if this is going to happen. But I do remember that story. And things got better actually over time. I see we might have lost John. Hopefully we can get him back.
Can I say one thing about the catheter removal, though, Reggie?
Yeah.
And that is, it's the source of the only moment of levity in my whole cancer experience. My wife had passed away, so I was single going through all of this, and the doctor arranged for the most beautiful nurse to remove this catheter. I thought I had died and gone to heaven, but she was only there for 15 seconds. I didn't even get her name. She came, she gripped it, she pulled it out, and she was gone.
It's gone. And then you were there like, okay.
Yeah, I'm like, even in the midst of all this, there are moments when something happens that just gives you a moment to smile.
Yeah, this is true. And as I look back on it, like the whole thing with going through Goodwill and not having the right pad or the right protection, knowing that I had no control.
Right.
I think back on it now. It's a little humorous there. It gets you through. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're close to kind of getting to the end of this. I did want to say, we talked about kind of where you are in your journey, and a couple of questions. And this is going to be kind of a multi question, I guess. I mean, it's like, first of all, one, did you have any regrets on the choice that you made? The second is kind of, where are you now? Are there any incontinence or ED involved? Or have there been any changes since going through treatment? And also, how has this changed your life? I mean, is it are you more apt to think about exercising and diet and those kinds of things? So just sort of that where are we now sort of thing, and what has this done, um to your life, moving forward? And John, you're back with us. All right, I'm going to ask you that question
Can you
since
hear me?
you yeah, I can hear you.
Okay,
So
yeah, yeah. I've never had any problems with ED or impotence or anything like that. Um, I like with incontinence, like sometimes I have the frequency when I gotta go, you know, but that's not all the time. It's if I'm holding it for a long period of time, whatever, and it's like driving wherever, So that's been the major issue, just the urinary thing. But I do saw palmetto, and things, natural things to try to offset some of the effects of the impotence or whatever. But like I said, I haven't had an issue with it, but I just don't want an issue with it. So I just
right.
try to be proactive.
So was there any change in diet, exercise, or anything like that?
I just do basic little exercise stuff, not extensive stuff. Like even when I was going through treatment, I was still able to do my everyday routine things. I was, didn't have to really take time off really,
Hmm.
because I like a couple of days after the surgery, I was pretty much good to go.
Okay.
Because like I say, it wasn't any cutting; it was just inserting the seeds inside the prostate, and so it's been, like I said, I mean, relatively speaking, it was a pleasant um, treatment. It was a pleasant situation altogether, as far as having the procedure that I actually went through.
Oh, it's so good that there's music. It's,
You know,
yeah, it's like a soundtrack. So,
right? But yeah,
um,
yeah.
okay, so and you're good now. Your PSA is undetectable
Yes,
still.
it's
Yeah.
been consistently that way. This is what 15 years for me now, so
Mm.
it's been consistently, you know, where it's supposed to be all these years.
Any side effects from the radiation at all?
Initially, there was some blackness on my skin, around,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, but then that went away, um, and a little sleepiness. But I mean, if you ask my friends, they tell me I've been sleeping since college. So, so but no, no real negative effects. I know,
Okay.
initially, obviously you can't have sex,
Right, right.
after any type of treatment like that. But for for several weeks, few months, but
Mhm.
it wasn't really extensive.
Okay.
So
All right.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
I don't
doing
regret.
good. And,
Yeah, I don't regret choosing this option at all. No, I don't regret it at
okay.
all. And I even, like I recommend it because it was well for me. So obviously, I think it could be a good thing for others because, like I said, they have a database of like 30,000 plus men that they've treated. So a good track record. Good
Hmm.
track record.
Hmm. Eric, I know you haven't gone through anything yet, but since you've discovered that, you're doing your surveillance, have anything changed? Diet, exercise? Have you been more, apt to say, I need to do something just to, you know,
No,
fight
I
this thing?
I pretty much tried to stay consistent with my workout regimen and with monitoring what I eat. I also say I have some other health issues in that, as most African Americans, I have high blood pressure. So with that, and taking blood pressure medication, I've had to kind of, in consultation again with my doctor, I've kind of modified my diet. And, as you get older, time brings on changes. And there's certain things that when you were 20 or 30 years ago, you could eat that you can't eat now. So
Yeah.
I've just tried to maintain, a fair amount of discipline. I go to the gym at least 2 to 3 times a week, And that was the other thing, too, that the urologist told me. He says that if keeping yourself in the best shape that you can keep yourself in, it kind of helps with a lot of the issues that you may have to deal with, long term. So, so that's probably going to be my lifestyle until, I actually go to the grave. Is that I'm going to always, and if a doctor says, well, hey, we need you to cut down on this, well, that's just might be something I just cut out, just split completely, because when the one thing that I forgot who a doctor it was that told me, he says, well, it had to do with my A1C number. He says, well, if you do this, if you just cut back on drinking this, I said, well, why don't we just do this? Why don't I just cut it out? We just don't do it.
Don't worry about it. Right.
I can just move on. I can just find some other substitutes to do, which are much more healthier substitutes to do. So, so with this, I'm gonna take the smart, educated route and make sure that I do all the things that are necessary to maintain a good state of health.
Great.
And I know I'm gonna get a chance to see all you brothers because y'all ain't going nowhere.
All right. Yeah, we'll be back. We'll do a part 2.
That's right.
James, what about you? How are things going now? And are you feeling any side effects from your surgery and some years later?
I'll jump in to say you asked the question, where are you now? And then you talked about a little bit about side effects. But before I say anything about that, let me go back to Brother Milton's removal of the bag. And let me just say, everybody in the office knew that I was there because I was not prepared for that at all. And that was more pain. I didn't even feel the surgery part of it, but I felt that. So let me just say it, go on record for that. But in terms of it, it's been 8 years. I go back and forth sometimes in my mind, should I have done the proton therapy or not? But, a successful treatment is a successful treatment. So at this point, I'm here 8 years later. I'm happy about it. We've all read the horror stories about, someone that we knew that didn't get diagnosed early enough, or they were in a stage 3 or 4 scenario that are not here with us. So I will say I'm thankful for the journey. I questioned my urologist, how many, I want to know, how many times have you done this surgery? I wanted to know that. What is your track record? What's your success rate of this? And he had done this surgery over 10,000 times. So that certainly was reassuring for me. And as far as where I am today, there was some experience with ED as a result of the robotic prostatectomy. That's something that I think, ultimately is a happy medium found. Is it, the way it was before? No. But is it, am I so here? Am I able to do what I need to do? The answer is yes. So I feel good about that. And, the alternative is not being here at all. And I really want to end on this note that for me personally, you talked about diet, you talked about lifestyle changes. Certainly we all can perchance need to eat healthier, more exercise, all those things. But I will point out that Caucasian males eat just as much fast food as we do. Their exercise regimens are no better than ours. So there is still another underlying factor as to why African American men are faced with this as such a higher number than our Hispanic colleagues, our Caucasian colleagues. There's still a missing element, just like it is with African American females. I know stress is a part of that. I was in a very stressful role at work at the time. Profitability of the company rested on my shoulders and my performance. So I know that was a big part. But in terms of, having the ultimate experience of saying, why is this happening so much more to African American men than Caucasian men? I know ultimately down the road, we're all going to get it at some point, but still just at such a higher number at such earlier ages, there is another element that we still need to find out about in this process.
Mhm. Okay. Good. And I will say too that the Cancer Research Center that's at Clark Atlanta University, CCRTD, that's what they're working on, is prostate cancer in men of color, to figure that out. What is going on? Why is it? But I will say this: I think part of what you said, James, about stress, because one of the things that I have to, I think, really try to mitigate and understand is that when you talk about things like sugar and stress and cancer loves those things. I mean, it's one molecule, and Milton, I'll talk to you about that. Going through that recurrence, I'm really at a point where what I was told when I got through it is that, yeah, we think this is going to work. It's one molecule here or molecule there that's still in the prostate bed, and so I'm like, I'm going to do everything I can to starve this, whatever, if there's some that are still there, so they don't grow. So I'm gonna do my part, because I didn't want to go down that hormone therapy road at all. So I'm praying that I don't have to do that. But to your point, James, we're still here. And as my wife always says, it's life over libido, because we all know someone who's not here, who didn't, and there's some famous people that have gone, that are no longer with us, that died from this disease. So we got to do what you can to get through it. Milton, what about you, as far as where you are now, and
So
did you regret going through having it removed, or?
no, I don't think I didn't have any regrets about the procedure that I did. I didn't have any regrets when it came back and I had to, go face to face with proton therapy. It was part of the journey. My wife's cancer had disappeared and come back, so I knew that this is a possibility, and I was prepared for that. I've tried, like James, I was a former athlete, and so I always tried to monitor my diet and exercise. I probably stepped that up a bit, pay a little bit more attention to what I eat. When my wife's was diagnosed with breast cancer, I became a meditator. And so I've been meditating pretty consistently over the last 10 years. And that wasn't a part of my lifestyle before, but it's been enormously helpful in dealing with stress and just helping me be more in tune with my body. So there are a bunch of things that I have done, but not one of them has to do with regretting decisions.
Yeah. Any side effects? Anything you've had to deal with since your surgery?
A little bit of the incontinence. If you laugh too loud or you cough, sometimes you get a little drip or a little dribble or something. So I've had to figure out what to do in those instances. After the prostate removal, I was on a regimen of Cialis. The doctor said it was for blood flow, and I accepted that explanation, and I also accepted the byproduct result of what I could do with the Cialis. So
Right.
something that I swore I was never going to have to use. I'm like, bring it.
Yeah.
And I'll show up to the pharmacy, and I don't care who's behind it. Yeah, I'm here for Cialis. Bring it.
Yeah, and for me, yeah, it's been a uh incontinence. So I wear a pad, so I don't have to. But I had a little bit of that before the surgery, and part of it is just waiting too long. You got to go, or you need to go and you don't, and then when you have to go, you got to go. I think we all can attest to that. And so what I've learned to do is sort of pace myself. And then for me, like Eric, you were dealing with some other things, and for me it's blood pressure. So when they put you on a blood pressure medication, they give you what, a diuretic, which makes you what, go to the bathroom. So that compounds the issue to a point where I take my blood pressure medication every other day. But look, if I know I'm on a trip, or if I'm going to be on a plane, or if I've got something, I'm like, you know what, I'm not taking it on that day. I'm going to move it over here. But I have, kind of gotten used to having the pad just in case. To your point, Milton, you laugh, or when you exercise, that's another thing. And then using, unfortunately, I can't use Cialis because Cialis put me in the hospital. Actually, it gave me vertigo, which is weird. But but I do, Viagra, or so the generic, using that. I tell men all the time that, if you do have issues, which I never had, Milton, I was like you. I'm like, I don't have to do nothing, and then have to kind of rely on that. And a funny, I guess you could say, this funny story was when Milton, and you can relate to this, when you go to get the proton therapy, or radiation too, I'm sure, John, is they kind of want to monitor where you are, like every 2 weeks or so, you got to fill out a survey and say, here, and can you do this, and how are you tired, that kind of thing. So it gets to the point where they're talking about intimacy, and so my wife was sitting next to me and I was filling it out. She was looking down, and when it got to that point about ED and stuff like that, I was a little, I think, overly optimistic, because I hit one, and she looked at me. She said, "Oh, no, 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 you're not there." So you need to go down a couple of ones. So I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it. She said, "But it's cool. Everything's cool. We have a wonderful sex life. It's great." But she was like, "I just want to let you know." So I was thinking, even in my mind, even through all of these years, right, I still have this kind of, just sort of thing about, I'm better than I am, but realistically, there's challenges that, there are just a number of ways to get around that these days. So I'm blessed that there are options. Anything else?
But Reggie,
Go ahead.
can I just say this? And
Yeah.
I know I'm not the only one on this screen who knows this, but I've known brothers who said they were not going to get checked, they were not going to get treated, because the erection was most important for them. They weren't going to do anything they were going to lose that. And so, for all of our listeners and all the viewers, life is what's important.
Yeah.
And there are things you can do, to get an erection, to keep an erection. They got procedures, pills, all kinds of stuff. Don't let, that hubris be the thing that puts you in the grave, because it
Yeah.
ain't worth dying over.
Yeah. As like I said, my wife says all the time, life over libido. You want to be here. And you know what, Milton, I think if somebody was given the option, like, it wasn't this long thing that you could put off, and it's not affecting you, and you're okay until, it's not okay. But if you said, you have a choice right now that we can take you out, or we can give you, you not have an erection, or we can take you out right now. Which one would you take? And I think if you had to make that decision that was just black and white, you would say, you know what, I will deal with this. The erection is not worth putting a gun to my head and taking me out. And I think that we have to get past, and with the DRE too. I mean, just that exam, and I know there are other ways of kind of determining what's happening with the prostate, but with the DRE, the digital rectal exam, I've heard some brothers saying, I'm not doing that. No, I'm a man. And I think that we just have to get through that, because what I did was think about my family. I thought about the fact that, I have a granddaughter coming sometime within the next week or so, that had I not done what I did to make, to make sure that this got taken care of, I wouldn't be here. This was 12 years ago. I wouldn't have made it. If I had done nothing, I wouldn't be here for that. So, it's so important. And I appreciate each one of you being honest, coming on, talk about, your experience and to help others kind of, get through this. Any parting words from anybody before we sign off here? Any words of wisdom? Eric, I
Well,
see you.
now I'd like to say something also too to that point about all of us on this call. Let's start trying to each of us go out and educate our brothers, because I just had a conversation with a couple other brothers that were not only not talking about going and getting the PSA done, but also same thing with colonoscopies. It's just that whole thing of, that somebody's dangling around in your sexual area, and it's affecting a manhood thing, but this is a health thing. And diseases that come along now, and for some reason in the 21st century, just like you, to your point, Reggie, it seems to affect the African American community the hardest than anybody else. Whenever you
Yeah.
hear anything, and just look at the last, when we went through COVID, it hit the African American community real hard. Each of us on this call, I bet you know somebody that has died from COVID. I bet you all of us have. Just imagine, and that's what I'm saying. I'm telling brothers, go see about getting yourself done. Don't be afraid to go to the doctor. Go do what's necessary. Okay, fine. If it's that bad and you don't want to experience it, let them put you to sleep or do whatever, but still get it done.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my part of it. See about your health, just so you can be here, just like to your point.
All right. Anybody else before we?
Yeah,
Is that
I would. Can you hear me? I'm not sure if I'm on. Okay,
No, we
yeah.
hear you.
One last thing. Also, one important thing I forgot to mention. We're creatures of habit, right? My cell phone, I used to carry my cell phone in my pocket every day, right? In my left pocket. Think about the number of hours that is after, you're doing it every day for a number of years, right? So when I had my biopsy done, guess what area they found something wrong first? The first
left
biopsy was the left side.
Wow.
Coincidence? No coincidence, because it was only one abnormal cell that first biopsy, and that was the area right there where I had the cell phone. So be careful about having your cell phones in your pockets, on your person, anything. That's radiation, and it's not like one single use, but it's the creature of habits. We do it constantly, and those hours of radiation add up. So did that solely cause my? No, but it contributes to it, I'm sure. Because that's excess radiation, and it showed up on the MRI, the biopsy that they had done for me. So yeah, I would encourage us to keep that cell phone away from our bodies.
I hear you. James, you had your hand up.
I did. I wanted to say on the departing note, we didn't really talk about a lot about ages and getting tested. And obviously, there's a standard for what's recommended for doctors across the board. But I do think that the African American community, that number needs to start at age 40 minimum. And if there's any family history, I think it needs to really drop back to age 35.
Yeah.
I agree.
And if there's anything that anyone listening can take away from this, just like Brother Eric just said, go get tested. You may as well face it head on, because keeping your head in the sand and not knowing is not the direction to go in at all. And we just need to have more forums, more educational opportunities to just hear other people that have gone through this, because there's a lot more people than this group that's on this podcast right now. There are thousands of people who have gone through this process. And once again, just like Brother Eric said, and I said at the beginning as well, for some reason, everything that happens seemingly hits the African American community the hardest. And you name it, it's whether it's COVID, breast cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, we are the ones that are impacted the greatest across the board. So for not any other reason, go get tested because of that. Because once again, the difference in life or death is in your hands.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And speaking of the PSA real quick, I think that if you know your number, for me, it was that it had gone up 0.6 over a short period of time. So even though when I was diagnosed, I was at 2.2, but I had been a year before, at 1 point something. And so I had a medical team that said, this is not normal. Even my primary care physician I've had for years said that my prostate did not feel the same when he did the DRE. And I'm thinking, I've talked to brothers that say, you know, their PSA could be 7 or 8, and doctors are saying, oh, well, you know, you're older, it's going to go up, you're okay. Well, let's just wait and see what it does. And I think you have to, I think in this group, everybody has sort of been advocates for your health. And I think that's the one thing that comes out of all of this, that we know doctors are smart, they know what they're doing, but it's always good to get second, third opinions. It's always good to talk to people and be your own advocate, particularly when you're talking about men of color, because a lot of times, like you said, James, things happen to us at a younger age. Sometimes it's more aggressive. And a lot of times when the numbers are low, based on what the norm is for the entire population, maybe not the case when we're diagnosed. So you just need to make sure that you keep track of how it's rising. If it's going up, 1 point, 2 points in 6 months or whatever, there's something going on, and you just need to, to take care of it.
Yeah, need to take care of it personally, because you may change the doctors and the records may not necessarily follow. Yeah, every physical exam, you need to know your PSA.
Yeah, just make sure. There, you know what? There's some physicals that the PSA is not even included, that doctors don't do. I think that may have been changed now, but I talked to a group of men and they said, I don't know. They literally had to ask to get the PSA checked.
Gotta advocate for yourself.
I always ask now, whatever it is. Even though I'm dealing with a urologist, when I get my physical, hey, in that blood work, you make sure there's certain things that I have them to pull, and the PSA is one of them.
Yeah. So thanks again. And we're kind of, it's getting a little late. I know everybody's got to go to work tomorrow, or, got things to do. I have one more question, and you can answer this if you want. If you don't, that's cool. This is football season. Any predictions for a game this weekend? I'm going to start Falcons. I hate to do this, but okay. They're going to win by 7 over the Buccaneers. I said it. It's now on tape. So,
it's on tape that you're wrong.
You know what? I know. But I got to go with look. Georgia's playing a cream puff, so I'm not going to deal with Georgia. But every year I do this, and every year they disappoint me. But I'm sticking with them. Anybody else got a prediction for this weekend?
Well, you stole my Falcons prediction, so I'll go with. I'm going to go out on a limb and say the Chiefs are going to beat LA in Brazil.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. I have a prediction that the Cowboys are going to get run over tonight.
It's tonight. Yeah.
That's right. Oh, we talked about that at the beginning.
Tonight.
Exactly.
Yeah, Cowboys, that's a sad situation there.
Yeah.
Well,
man.
I'm gonna go on record as saying I'm an Atlanta native, so I can speak very honestly and openly about the Falcons. They haven't gone to the playoffs in 7 years. This isn't their year either. And in terms, let me address UGA as well, and I've got one final statement. UGA's now going to have 2 tune-up games back-to-back, which are like scrimmages.
Yeah.
For Tennessee.
I almost really didn't like last weekend because you started out with so much parity from the preseason rankings, which you had 3 teams in the top 10 to lose. So now that just throws everything out of whack. I would rather see those games maybe week 3 or 4 versus the first week to start off with. Give everybody kind of a chance to get tuned up a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of Dallas, I feel the same way about Dallas as I do about the Falcons. The ownership needs to sell the team. They are too vested. And I know in terms of Jerry Jones, he spent $150 million on the team. It's now worth $13 billion+. So he can walk away with a heck of a payday. But the worst decision he made was allowing Micah Parsons to go away from that team. They are doomed from the start.
It's like Dominic got traded for, was it Danny Manning? Worst in the world.
Hey, this is the Falcons' year. They go into the playoffs this year.
Okay.
Mark
No,
that
sir.
down.
I think
Mark
they're
it
They'll
gonna.
be at home watching. Like,
Hey, listen, Reggie, record that now, because if we have another podcast, we'll be back on.
It's
no
recorded. It's
problem.
recorded. And, you know,
I
for
stand
the
all
universe.
10 with my decision because they didn't address the right issues at all.
Yeah.
Oh,
We'll have to come back for this conversation.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, gentlemen, so much. I
yes,
just
sir. Yes, sir.
for being a part of this, for your honesty, your courage, and your willingness to share your prostate cancer journey. It means a lot to the brothers that and other men that will be watching this, and hopefully significant others, and just getting the word out, particularly now in September with this being Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. So thank you so much. Let's stay in touch, and let's check on one another to make sure we all continue this journey together. So I'm gonna say good night to you all. Danny's gonna let you go, and I'll do my little parting piece here in just a second. Thank you, Milton, James, John, and Eric. So and we got a little football pronostication going on as well. So I figured we wanted to end on a kind of interesting and light note. Um, and want to thank you for watching, listening, for being a part of this conversation. We hope that you've heard something that is giving you not only knowledge, but also strength and encouragement to get through this. If today's episode has resonated with you, we want to ask you if you would please share it with a loved one. Also, subscribe. You can leave us a message. You can connect with us and listen to past episodes at ifyouaremybrothers.org. That's our website, ifyouaremybrothers.org. Follow us on social media. And also, the audio version of this episode will be available next Tuesday. Every Tuesday, we will drop the episode, the audio episode of the podcast on all of your favorite platforms like Apple and Spotify and all the others. And of course, all the episodes are archived on our YouTube channel as well. Now, if you want to support this effort, because If You Are My Brothers is a nonprofit 501c3 project dedicated to prostate cancer awareness and what we like to call health action, in addition to health awareness. As you heard during this conversation, we all talked about taking action, being your own advocate, doing something. And so we really want to promote health action with this project. We hope you will support us in what we do. Here's a slide you see on the screen right now of all our giving options. If you're listening to our podcast, the link will be in our show notes as well. And I want to special thanks to our producer, Danny Garcia Pozo, who's been in the background and getting us all connected. Also to Zach Reynolds at Borkhouse Productions for our opening. And we want to remind you that this podcast is not a substitute, again, for your medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance about your own health. Now, we'll see you next Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be streaming live with the second episode in our series this September. Next episode is Life After Treatment, Facing Changes and Finding Strength. So until then, if you are my brothers, we will stay in touch with each other. We will know our PSA, and we will get through this together. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. Peace.